So, about September of last year, I decided to make a backroom game. Okay, so the next bit of the video will be me roughly going over my past projects that I've made with Unity. However, I understand if you don't care about my other projects and only want the backroom content. So, here's 2 timestamps. The first one's for the original backroom games that I worked on and made in Unity. The second one's for the backroom game made in Unreal that I will continue to develop. Okay, now back to my Unity saga. Using Unity, I've made a lot of projects that ultimately didn't go anywhere for various reasons, but I think they're interesting enough to talk about, so here's what I've made in Unity in no particular order. I've made a physics-based prop hunt game, as I try to copy another game called Witchit. I had to drop the project because I wanted a map that was accurately based on my high school, which will stress me out as there's a lot to model, and also Unity's built-in collisions was really iffy and difficult to work with. But looking at this again, if I ignore the accuracy of the map and instead put more effort into gameplay, I see some potential. So I will probably come back to rebuild this in Unreal in the near future. Before I get into the next bit of the video, I want to introduce you to Mix and Jam. This YouTube channel recreates some cool video game stuff in a digestible format like the Splatoon effect, and from their channel, I followed this video. After recreating what they had in the video, I attempted to import Moo Moo Meadows. I gave up on that since I couldn't get it to look the way I wanted, and moved on to recreating it using Unity's built-in terrain system, which was difficult just on its own, but on top of that, a grass add-on from Unity's asset store that cost me $15 had some visual problems. Everything compounded to a somewhat miserable experience, so I gave up on it and just bought 8 copies of Kart Furious Racing on Steam. There's also my 3D Among Us. I made this after watching Danny's video a while back, and he said he wasn't gonna release his version, and that's not fair. I want to play some 3D Among Us. So after that I started working on it and was making some progress. I modeled a fairly accurate model of the map, rigged the player models that I made, and also set up multiplayer. However, just like all my other projects, this was dropped too. The reason this time around was not just that I didn't feel like it, but because I literally couldn't. So essentially, around this time, I upgraded my PC, and you know how like, you're not supposed to have the red bar for your drivers? I couldn't be bothered to check which files were important and just wiped them all. All that is left are builds saved on Dropbox that I sent to others for testing, multiplayer, and not the actual Unity project. So the good thing is, even if I did retrieve the files, there would be no point in completing it as Among Us is coming out with its own official 3D version. Enough with my failed projects. For the back room, I started by building a wall generator. The wall generator essentially draws a line on a 2D texture. If the line hits another, then it stops prematurely and spawns an object in its place. After that, I worked on the visual side of things. For some reason, I made the visuals in a separate project, and I don't really remember how to use Unity to import it into my other project. The textures are made by me, but I did this a while ago, and it's probably pretty simple. But I can't be bothered to relearn Unity, so here's the rundown. I made 2 different textures, the triangle and the dots. I set it up so that the triangle repeat offset from each other and the dots repeat normally without any offset. I also decided to add some squiggly noise at the bottom to act as a floor trim instead of an actual mesh, so that I don't have to add more objects than needed. Even if it doesn't make sense, I think it helps the wall blend with the floor in a nice way, and it hides the texture's imperfections. The ceiling is done by overlapping a metal material grid over another random noise that controls where you'll find fake holes. And the carpet is just a height map that's controlled by dense noise, which I say accurately depicts moist carpet. After all the object had correlating materials, I went to add the lights. The first few worked, but then this happened. The problem stems from one object interacting with too many light sources. I tried cutting the floor objects into smaller pieces, and it works until it doesn't. I actually had this problem when I was working on 3D Among Us. Right here, when I try to make shield charges, I'm not really sure what they are, but the glowing sticks in the shield room. Looking back at things, I probably could have just baked the lights into the mesh, switch it out for ones that has all the lights off, you know, when the sussy turns the lights off. But that wouldn't work for the real-time wall generator. Well, after all that, I kind of dropped Unity in favor of Unreal. Another reason for my switch was that Unreal just released Unreal Engine 5. 5, not just being a bigger numbers than 4, the old version, it also came with Nanite and Lumen, both brand new systems to Unreal Engine, and both very powerful tools. Nanite handles mesh optimization, and Lumen gives you access to real-time lighting on par with RTX. There are probably more stuff that came out with Unreal Engine 5, but these two, especially real-time lighting, is enough for me to make the switch even if I have to relearn the basics. I started by replicating the simple wall generator that I had in Unity, which was surprisingly difficult to figure out as a lot of things were different. And after a while of tinkering, I was able to recreate it rather faithfully to the original. If I put it side by side, you literally won't be able to tell which is which. However, in runtime you can tell the difference. The problem is this node right here. Essentially, this node is in charge of checking pixels to see if a line has been drawn there already. As it is the backbone of the whole generator, I would need to find an alternative to check for walls. I initially started by Googling, however all I could find was other people with the same problem, and no solution. So I kind of just asked in the Unreal Engine Discord server, hoping someone had an idea, and I got a reply pretty fast. They told me to use Unreal Niagara. From what I understand, it is equivalent to Unity's particle system. I might have been able to use this to check pixels, but I ended up scrapping that idea when it was just too overwhelming for me to learn more when I literally just picked up Unreal a couple of days ago. Eventually, I kinda just figured you don't really need the textures to generate the backrooms, and the solution I came up with is rather simple. Raycasting. With raycast, I could just shoot one line in the third dimension, which worked wonderfully as a replacement to the old method. It doesn't really look like the backrooms right now, so I guess I should talk about the visuals. For the Unreal version of the backrooms, I actually made 3 different textures for the walls instead of just one. The reason being that the original image actually has more than just one texture. Obviously we have the classic, then the dots, and also the lines. Not just that, but something I noticed when analyzing this image. I noticed that this wall next to the lines, the texture doesn't seem right. So I checked to see if it's a classic, and there's much more of the darker colors showing through. Which reminded me of this image I found on Reddit. The combination of lighter and darker colors seemed to match. I don't know, just food for thought I guess. Well, now that we got the materials we have to decide which goes where. Instead of just letting it purely be RNG, I decided to set up zones using noise. Even if in the image it seems fairly random, I chose not to, as doing it with zones promotes exploration and doesn't make the different materials an immediate afterthought. I will eventually add more textures in the future as it is cool to come across new zones, even if all that's different is purely visual. But on the other hand, the whole idea of the backrooms is that it's all the same, no matter how much you explore. Should I add more textures or just stick to the first 3? Oh, and also the wall generator was actually improved on from when it was just making lines in Unity. I say I improved it, but I didn't really add too much. To replicate the original image, some walls that's connected to another would spawn in as an office divider. And I added a check to make sure they're not super long, as that would break the immersion. Also made it so after the wall spawn it shoots another ray from either side to get rid of peak holes. That's what I have for now. The walls randomly come equipped with a floor trim and or an electrical outlet. On top of that, using the zone system from earlier, we have the wall trim. The reason for using the zone system instead of pure RNG just like the materials is because if we look at the image, out of the 5 walls, 4 of them have it, but not all, so it kinda just made sense to me. I'm quite happy with how the carpets turned out in the end. I originally wanted to replicate what I had in Unity, because it was really good at conveying moist carpet. But I had to give up on that as I had no idea how to do it. In the end, I filmed this rug video, and things look great with this texture that may or may not appear in the future. But when I take it away, you can clearly see the repeating patterns as it's not procedural. So I used a very intuitive texture variation node, which essentially cuts the base material into sections with varying rotations, then blending them together. And with some tweaking, I got rid of the obvious repetition and the seams in between. By doing so, the material looks rather messy, but it is better than obvious repetition, so I don't mind. The ceiling is done in a similar manner to the Unity's version. The one thing I did differently was the aspect ratio. Instead of squares, I changed it to rectangles. The reason being, 1. The original image rocked the rectangles too, even if it's hard to see. And 2, even if it didn't, it kinda just made sense. Oh, and I also used the Unreal decals to act as, I don't know, the ceiling trim? I think it looks fine even if it has some problems. Okay, finally onto the fluorescent lights. There's not much going for the lights as it's literally just 4 glowing tubes. And I guess that's essentially what a light is, but in the case of most games it's usually done differently. Okay, so normally you would have a light emitter of sort, from directional lights to point lights. I couldn't do this as it caused me quite a bit of lag when I had a whole bunch of them. What you're seeing is lag from 100 lights, and I would need about 1,000 of these. So while I was setting up the lights, I found out that you could just have the light materials act as a light emitter, and I'm assuming this only works in Unreal because of Lumen. However, it comes with some notable issues. One that I immediately noticed is that the lights have trouble lighting its surrounding past a certain distance. Another one that I found was, some of these lights are weaker. They're all supposed to be the same thing, but I find that some of these have less impact on its surroundings. With the weaker ones, if you look away from them, they turn off completely. If anyone knows what's going on, please let me know so I can fix these issues. But honestly, the side effects from using Lumen are outweighed by the pros. Also the fact that I don't really have a choice. I also set up some of the good old maximum hum buzz, but that's about it. Oh, I forgot to mention. One more thing that you'll come across is the pillar. You won't find any pillars in the original image, but many other adaptations of the backroom do, so why not? They're set up with the same stuff you find on the wall, except for the wall trim. For now, they spawn randomly anywhere, but if their raycasts touch a wall, they self-destruct. This can lead to them spawning diagonally from one another. But yeah, for now this is all my backroom game has to offer. Before you click off though, I could use some feedback. Entities. Should I add them? As interesting and scary as they are, the wiki says that level 0 is entirely devoid of life. However, one of the more popular adaptations of the backroom done by KingPixel has entities, and they seem fairly common. If I were to add them, I am confident I can pull it off, but should I even? What do you think? Another thing is, with my backroom I'm trying to be faithful to the wikis. There it mentions how no two rooms within the level are identical, and this is one of the main reasons why my wall generator is the way it is rather than a large array of pre-built rooms. However, a backroom that's purely random is boring to explore, which I guess you could argue is the whole point of the backrooms, but that's still boring, so I plan to add pre-built rooms, or I guess zones. So I'm wondering if you would be interested in having sub-areas. It won't just be like, oh, there's a large empty room here, but something similar to what you'll find in KingPixel's found footage video. In it, he has that section where it has the crosses, and there's also the Manila room, which the wiki say is an extension of level 0. It's so simple that it's essentially just a chair in a room with Manila wallpaper, hence the name. Another area that I'm considering to make is the red rooms. I found traces of the red rooms from Dapper Husky's recreation, a Roblox recreation, and also this Minecraft mod of the backrooms, in which they all use the red rooms as an extension rather than just a standalone level. But it's not exactly an extension of level 0, and I assume it's probably because they don't really want to recreate every level of the backrooms. I'm sure there's more than what I just mentioned, and if there's anything I missed for level 0, let me know, since it's pretty boring to scour the wiki for all of them. But yeah, bye! Okay, so the video is done, but I still have more I want to talk about. I know, but bear with me. For the next video I plan to do level 1, and I could do level 2, but it will probably be some of the more fun levels, like the pool rooms, or literally level fun. But outside of that, I want to do so much more. I want to recreate Smash Bros, Mario Kart, Prop Hunt, Deck Builder, VR, roguelikes, and you know what? I want to do everything. And I'm only saying this so you can be ready for it and expect it to happen eventually. And what I want most of all is for this to work out for me. So if you enjoyed what you saw, even if it's lackluster or messy, I will improve in the future, so subscribe. It will really help me out engaging if this is something I can afford to do or not. Oh, and maybe I'm being greedy, but likes the video too. Something I forgot to mention was that I released a 10-minute video of wandering in the back rooms. So let's check it out if you want uninterrupted, boring backroom walking simulator. Bye for real this time.